श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ नमः प्रणवार्थाय शुद्धज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। मनसैवेदमाप्तव्यम्
मनसैवेदमाप्तव्यम्
नेह नानास्ति किञ्चन
नेह नानास्ति किञ्चन
मृत्योः स मृत्युं गच्छति
मृत्योः स मृत्युं गच्छति
य इह नानेव पश्यति।
य इह नानेव पश्यति
इह ब्रह्मणि नाना न अस्ति नाना न अस्ति नाना न अस्ति किंचन। There is nothing called nana. And yet we see this variety. Shastra tells us there is no such thing as nana, multiplicity. So clearly there is a contradiction here, there is a issue here. We see nanatvam. The problem is this. When I say I see nanatvam, the very statement is indicative of the wrong vision. Even if I say I don't see nanatvam, the result is the same. The moment you talk about I, the individual manas, there is nanatvam. How do you understand nanatvam? Shastra tells us there is only one indivisible consciousness, an entity, an awareness that is there. Everything else belongs to another order of reality. So in the Paramarthika order of reality, there is only one. So anything else I see is not that one Satyam. Therefore, the word iva, as though. If there is no Advaitam, Advaitam itself, like we saw last time, is a negation of Dvaitam, Advaitam. Means we are already saying there is no Dvaitam. Advaitam means you cannot possibly have Dvaitam because already negated Dvaitam. And yet, Dvaitam is apparent. It is only through, not only is it apparent, to everybody, anybody who is born in this Jagat, Dvaitam is the most obvious thing. Dvaitam in the form of saying I and others, I and the rest of the world, I and Ishvara, all of these are Dvaitam. Somewhere, this very strongly embedded knowledge of the fact that there is only Dvaitam. That's why I love this Murari story. It's so natural to have access to Dvaitam. How do I recognize what Shastra says? Here, na nana asti, kinchana nana nasti. And yet, I have to overcome this false notion I have of nanatvam. That is why it becomes so difficult. They call it, sukshmat, sukshmataram, guhyat, guhyataram. This knowledge. It is this transition which becomes extremely difficult to do. As long as one sees anything other than Advaitam, we will recognizing Nanatvam. Let's trace it back a minute. Where did it all start? If we ask an Advaita scholar, he would say it never started. There was never such thing. What is Maya then? Maya is only an attempt for us to understand why do I see Nanatvam. It is a post-fact method to recognize Nanatvam, which after having clearly understood, I also understand is false. So the beauty of this is true and yet it is false. In this Nana Jagat, one of the Nanatvam is I and Ishvara. And we give these attributes to Ishvara. He is a Saguna Brahman of being all knowledge, all power. And the assumption is that because it's all knowledge, all power, Ishvara knows that there is no Nanatvam. And yet here is I and Ishvara as Nanatvam. We seek Ishvara's blessings. We seek Ishvara's grace for all kinds of things. The highest form of which is, help me understand that this embedded Nanatvam that I'm seeing, which has been so strongly ingrained in me, how do I understand this Nanatvam? And therefore, how do I understand Satyam? Therefore, from the point of view of any sadhaka, Nanatvam is definitely a step. I have to be in Dvaitam. I am in Dvaitam. Nobody has a choice. Nobody has a choice. This Dvaitam came about because of how does the whole multiplicity come about? We said Maya. And then we call it illusion, magic, all sort of things. But what is it about Maya which creates this? Two things in the Maya. Two forms of ignorance it creates. Maya itself is ignorance. Avarana and Vikshepa. The ability to cover up something and having covered it up, to project something else in its place. Avarana and Vikshepa. This is the process that we all go through. That is true of also this jnanam. Jnanam is covered. Maya Shakti, Avarana Shakti covers this Maya, this jnanam, because it is ajnanam. Ajnanam covers jnanam. And that has to be corrected. Before you can correct it, what happens? Maya also projects Vikshepa. What is the jnanam that it covers? That there is ekameva advitiyam, aham. And then once that is covered, I don't know what aham is, what I is. So it gives you a, like a drowning man will clutch at anything. In fact, Swamiji used to say, there was a drowning man desperately trying to find something to hang on to, and he found a floating log, hung on to it for his life. And then he found that the log is hanging on to him for life. That happened to be a bear. So he was hanging on to the bear. You hang on to anything that you can get hold of, anything which might give you some sense of sanity. That is where Maya's Vikshepa Shakti comes into play. It makes it so easy for us to accept that I is this body-mind complex, sense complex, and therefore it is an individual, and therefore there are other things, other people, and therefore there is nanatvam. And we stick with that. Till we start questioning, there is something wrong in this assumption. And when we start examining that, we find that that vikshepa of body-mind sense complex that we have assumed, there is something fundamentally wrong with that assumption. That is when one starts the search and starts looking for, seeing where is the error, where is something that is not right, where is the lacuna, and tries to find out. This nanatma also comes because of the fact that Maya, for the first time in this Jagat, is Trigunatmika. Once you have the Trigunatmika, you can create any number of different things. In the early days of color TV, I don't know how many of you have seen this. In fact, early days of computer color screens also same thing. We used to have a screen called RGB, red, green, and blue. With those three, we were able to create multiple colors, combination of these three. TV became color TV because of this RGB. Just three things, and you created thousands of different colors and shades. This is what is happening with Maya. Maya, because it is Trigunatmika, seems to create a huge number of things with multiple combinations of the three gunas. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Even things which are insentient is what? Tamas. No movement, nothing. So you create this huge multiplicity, huge nanatvam. If you can trace it back to Maya, and understand that I am being fooled by Maya, one can start examining this, one's understanding of Nanatvam. Because these three gunas, it is not simple, what do you call this? 8 different combinations of three gunas. It is millions of combinations because each guna you can have any number of, in the range of gunas. Not only that, these gunas keep varying. In our lives, we see on a day-to-day basis also, early morning, typically what is called Brahma Muhurta, we have Sattva predominance. Rajas predominance during the day and Tamas predominance during the night. And it is true also of time in terms of years. When a baby, one tends to be Tamas predominant. Sleep 18 hours a day. And then go through the cycles of Tamas Rajas Sattva, Tamas Rajas Sattva, and then become old and again become Tamas predominant. So it also varies. So now you can see how you get these millions of variation causing nanatvam. But what does the Shastra say? Iha Brahmani nana nasti. No nanatvam at all. As long as a person senses nanatvam, iha yaha nana eva pashyati. Anyone who sees as though there is a lot of variations, lot of multiplicity, nana eva pashyati, what happens to that person? Mrityu janma, mrityu janma, mrityu janma, mrityu janma. So what, Swamiji? What's wrong with mrityu janma, mrityu janma, mrityu janma? That is life. All you can say is good luck to you. Enjoy it. No? Anybody who tells you that that is the way it is, mrityu janma, mrityu janma, mrityu janma, I'm okay with it. Hopefully, next time I'll have a more comfortable janma. Then you can tell him, how do you know? Next time you may be born a street dog. How do you know? You don't know. Are you willing to take the chance? So this nanatvam is something our Shastra addresses quite extensively. In many places you will see, he who sees nana iva is stuck in this cycle as long as he continues to see nanatvam. This is the gist of this verse and the next verse. We talk about nanatvam as being the root cause of samsara, perception of nanatvam. Mrityoho samrityum gacchati ya iha naneva pashyati. So we saw in the Bashyam, Bhashyakara says, this nanatvam disappears. How? Apte cha. Apte means having gained what? Samskritena manasa eva idam brahma ekarasam. When one recognizes the indivisible ekarasam brahma, which can be gained only by a mind which is well prepared. Samskritena manasa. And Acharya defines the Samskrita as Acharya Agama Samskritena manasa. That mind which has got the adhikaritvam, because that mind which is able to see with the help of Shastra, with the help of a Guru, the Ekarasam Brahma. Aptecha nanatvam pratyupasti prakaya avidyaya nivartatvat. That avidya, which is Maya, having been removed, nivartatvat, iha brahmani nana na asti kinchana anumatramapi. Not even, you cannot have a little bit of nanatvam. Anything which is I and anything else is nanatvam. Told you, Advaya itself is negation of Dvaita. So anything other than Advaya is negation, again, of Advaita, therefore Dvaita. Very broad definition of Dvaita. You can have several sub-classifications on that. But it's only Dvaita. So, iha brahmani nana na asti kinchana anumatramapi. This nanatvam is the cause of fear. As long as one sees a division between I and anything else, there is cause for fear. Udaramantaram kurute tasya bhayam bhavati. Even ut adara antaram, udaram antaram, even a small, anything other than indivisible ekameva advitiya Brahman is cause for fear. And cause for fear immediately requires protection. That cause for fear makes one start looking for protection, for security. Nanatvam is the hetu for fear. Udaramantaram kurute natasya bhayam bhavati. Nana itself actually is derived from nanj pratyaya and nan. Nana, different. So what happens to somebody who is not able to overcome this ajnanam, avidyaya nivartatvat, he said earlier. If you're not able to do that, if that avidya continues, what happens? We will read what Bhashyakara has to say. Go down further. Yahatu.
Yahatu.
Go a little bit down. Now, yes, two is there, no? Yahatu.
Yahatu.
Punaravidya timira drishtim na munchati.
Avidya timiri
Iha brahmani
Brahmani
nana iva pashyati.
nana iva pashyati.
Samrityor mrityum gacchati.
Samrityor mrityum gacchati.
Yor mrityum gacchati eva.
Eva.
Swalpamapi bhedam
Swalpamapi bhedam
adhyaropayan ityarthah.
adhyaropayan ityarthah.
We said earlier that there is no nanatam at all. Na iha nana asti kinchana. Anumatramapi nana nasti. But when you see nanatvam, yaha, too, on the other hand, yaha, the one who sees nanatvam. Why does one see nanatvam? Punar avidya timira drishtim na munchati. Punaha, the one who again is unable to overcome this avidya which is timira drishtim. Timira is cataract. Trimidrishtim na munchati. Avidyam na munchati. He is not able to free himself from avidya. Like a timira drishti. If you have cataract in one eye, you can imagine these have been written thousands of years ago. They knew that if somebody has cataract in one eye, he will say, Dvichandra, look up in the sky and see two moons. So when that timira drishtim na munchati is not freed of the trimira drishti, that means avidya like, trimira drishti like avidya, if he is not freed of that, he will continue to see nanatham. Then what happens? Iha brahmani nana iva pashyati. Only sees nana iva pashyati. That person mrityor mrityum gacchati eva. He is stuck in that circular path. Mrityu janma karma karma phala mrityu janma karma 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 phala mrityu janma. Same thing over and over again. So mrityoho mrityum gacchati eva. Why is that? Swalpamapi bhedam adhyaropayan. We have understood this much that Ekameva Advitya Brahman is Abheda. There is no possibility of that Ekameva Advitya Brahman having any type of Bheda. Not Swagata Bheda. Swagata Bheda means Bheda within itself. Any object that we know is made up of many parts. And because it's made up of many parts, there are differences within that object itself. Our Sharira itself is a classic example. So many different parts. You can physically say head, hand, heart, hands, legs, etc. You can talk about dermis, epidermis, etc. You can talk about blood and bones and skin and muscle and so on. In many different ways, you can break it down. Whereas Brahman is avyaya, there is nothing in terms of, it is not composed of an assembly. There is no assembly, there is no parts, there is no way you can look at a Svagata Bheda. Okay, then there may be Bheda in terms of Svajatiya Bheda. There can be another jati, one called Atma, another called Anatma, is another jati. Because that's what we see. We talk about Atma, Anatma, Viveka as a necessary preparation. So there is Atma, there is Anatma. Two different jatis. No. There isn't two different jatis. There is only one. Anything else you see is mithya. Therefore, you have only one jati, one indivisible Brahman. That's the only jati. Oh, can I have Brahman 1, Brahman 2, Brahman 3, Brahman 4? No. Why? Because Brahman has no attributes or characteristics. If you want to have a Brahman 1, Brahman 2, Brahman 3, Brahman 4, etc., then you must have some characteristic to differentiate this Brahman 1 from Brahman 2 from Brahman 3. No characteristics, no attributes, no guna. How are you going to separate them? So, no swajatya bheda, no swagata bheda either. Can there be something else, another jati, something else? Vijatiya bheda. There is nothing other than Brahman. No question of another jati. Therefore, it has no swagata bheda, no swajatiya bheda, no vijatiya bheda either. That Brahman, if there is any difference you see, it is only falsely aropita. What do you mean by aropita? We look at everything from the Vyavaharika order of reality. And sitting here, we try to understand Brahman, which is Paramarthika Satyam. Therefore, what happens when we think we know this Vyavaharika Satyam, of which this body, mind, sense complex are part, I try and understand Brahman through this only. And therefore, I imbue that Brahman with some of the characteristics of this. That Brahman, which is Aham, Atma, Brahman, Om, same, that Brahman, I attach properties. I am fat. And when I say that, I mean the Atma. I don't say the body is fat. I say, I am fat. I am disturbed. I am intelligent. I am an Indian. I am a man. All of these things. I am a karta. I am enjoying this wonderful thing that's happening to me. All are aropita. Even a small amount of aropa will do what? Vedam adhyaropayan swalpamapi. We will get nanatva. I and everything else. I and all of you. I and this Jagat. I and Ishvara. I've already created an enormous amount of nanatvam. So in this verse, where we say Dvaitam, something other than I exists, anything other than I exist is duality. It automatically makes me small, limited. The moment I have even one small thing identified as other than I become that much smaller, that much more insecure, that much more afraid. Swalpamapi Vedam Aropayan. See the differences between I and anything which is not I. We do get nanatvam with all the consequences. This nanatvam is something which again is repeated in the next mantra. In terms of the Mahavakya. Why is it Mahavakya? What is it that Mahavakya says? That I that I thought I was, which is the Pratyagatma, Jiva, is the same as Ishvara. Because they are both only Brahman. They are not two different things. Mahavakya, that's the Aikyam is Mahavakya. Jiva Aikyam, Jiva Jagat Aikyam, Jiva Ishvara Aikyam. That only Aikyam. That is Mahavakya. Anything which establishes this is Mahavakya. In the next verse, he also talks about this. What is this Atma? That which Nachiketa has been asking for as a third boon to explain what this Atma is. Does it exist? Some people say Asti, some people say Nasti. What is that? So he's been repeatedly saying, Yamadharma Raja, Etad Vaitat, that which you asked for, this is that. I will explain to you what this is, he says. He's already done that several times. Again, continues in the same thing because it's not something which is readily digestible. So in the next mantra, he says, introducing the next mantra, Bhashyakara says, Punarapi tadeva
पुनरपि तदेव
prakritam brahma aha.
प्रकृतं ब्रह्म आह
What does it aha? Angushtamatra purushaha
अंगुष्ठमात्रः पुरुषः
madhya atmani tishtati
मध्य आत्मनि तिष्ठति
ईशानो भूतभव्यस्य
ईशानो भूतभव्यस्य
न ततो विजुगुप्सते
न ततो विजुगुप्सते
एतद्वैतत्
एतद्वै तत्
Purushaha. To use the word Purushaha has two meanings. Purau ushati iti Purushaha. That which is in the Puri. Navadvare Pure Dehi, we've studied in the Gita. The mouth and the nose, etc., are all Dwara, gates to this Puri, to the city, in which the indweller is Purushaha, the individual, the Jiva. This is one meaning of the word Purusha. Therefore, in a normal parlance, particularly if we're Hindi speaking, Purusha, we refer to a male. But in this meaning, Purusha does not refer to any particular gender. Purusha means that which is in every single body as Pratyagatma. Pura Ushati. This is one meaning. Another meaning is Purayati, Sarvam Purayati, iti Purushaha. That which pervades everything. Now look at this. Our Mahavakya is what? Tat Tvam Asi. This Purushaha, which is the Pratyagatma Jiva, is Tvam. That's how we identify individual. And Sarvam Purayati is that which pervades everything, Tat. Yena Sarvamidam Tatam, we've seen again in Bhagavad Gita. The two are the same. The two meanings indicate the same. Mahavakya. Tattvamasi. Just one word. Purusha Purusha. That Purusha which is Jiva is the same as the Purusha which is Sarvam Purayati Tat Padam. So Shankaracharya says, Punaha api tadeva tat Brahman eva prakritam brahmaha. That Brahman which we've been discussing all this time, that which you asked for, what is that Atma? It's the same as Brahman, which is the same as Aham. So, see, this mantra explains the nature of that etad vaitat. Here he says Angushtamatra Purusha. Now, you know that Angushta is what? Thumb. In Hindi we say Anguthi. Each of these fingers have their own name. Tarjaniya, indicator, Tarjaniya. This is what you call Madhyama. This is Anamika. This is the one finger which in the West they use for using their engagement ring, wearing their engagement ring. So Anamika. This is the one I had an accident some years ago, got a part of it chopped off. My Anamika went. And this small one is called Kanishta. Kanishta means small. Angushta. If you look at this, our palm, you have some very interesting things that are symbolically seen. There are various mudras you've seen, right? And one of the mudras is called Chin Mudra. These three represent the body-mind sense complex. This represents Ahankara, the indicator. And this represents Paramatma. So in a Chin Mudra, when you do this Ahankara and the Paramatma meet in one endless circle. They are not different. Number one. Number two, they are separate from this body-mind sense complex. That is the meaning of Chin Mudra. So the Ahankara and the Parameshwara, they meet in one endless circle with no beginning, no end. It's a circle. This is how we see this Chin Mudra. The interesting thing about this is, while the Ahankara and the body-mind sense complex are one part of it, the thumb is detached. Thumb is detached. But without the thumb, you cannot really do anything. If you ever got hurt in the thumb, you will know that you can't do anything with this hand. These four cannot on their own do anything. They need the thumb, which is asanga, which is away from them. The thumb, which is, when combined with the Ahankara to form a circle, is the entire understanding of Advaita Vedanta. Therefore, when in many places you will see Bhagavan showing this mudra, blessing us, saying, may you understand this. So this Angushta, which is of relatively small size but fat, this Purusha which is within one, the Puri, Angushtamatra Madhya Atmani, here Atma does not refer to the Brahman, it refers to the individual Sharira. Atmani Tishtati. Madhya Atmani Tishtati. Many places you will see things like Hridaya Pundarikam, the lotus-like heart. And you imagine this Purusha, the indweller, the Jivatma, in that position, in that small space within the space of the heart, for only Upasana. It is a good way of doing it, nothing wrong with that. But it is meant only for Upasana. To imagine the placement of the Atma as Jivatma within the space in the heart and to contemplate upon it. Called Angushtamatra Purusha Madhya Atmani Tishtati. The seat of Ahankara, the seat of Aham. And in that, on that we do Upasana. This Chidra, the space in the heart, it's not a physical thing, it's only a symbolic thing. If you take the heart and look at all the things that are there in that heart, you would probably never imagine. But it is symbolically said. Right on the side of the heart is the lungs, and they are the operational part of the Sharira. That Jivatma, on which is meant for Upasana, you place a position for that, is the same as Ishaha. Bhuta Bhavyasya Ishaha. Recognize that as Ishvara, Parameshvara. One which is the Karanam for Kala. Bhagavan says, Kalosmyaham to Arjuna. Recognize as the Karana for Kala. Kala will immediately take care of everything else. Because Kala automatically takes space, distance. They are inseparable. And between Kala and space, what Einstein called the space-time continuum, everything else exists. Everything that we know. Therefore it says, Ishanaha Bhuta Bhavyasya, of the past, of the present, of the future, all of which are born of that Ishvara, who is the Lord of all of them. Ishaha. The Lord of all of them is Parameshvara. When you recognize this Angushtamatram Purusha as the individual Jivatma and recognize that as being non-different, non-separate from Ishano Bhutabhavyasya, you have understood Aikyam. And that is the Mahavakyam. That Mahavakyam one understands. Then what happens? Like we saw in the previous mantra, there is no need for any security, any protection. Protection from what? Only when there is Udaramantaram kurute. Swalpamapi adhyaropaha. Only then you have a cause for fear. And a cause for fear automatically means need for protection, need for security. In many places I've heard, if you go and start a new business, even if it's a small business like a shop, the local gundas will come. You know, this is a very dangerous area. People might come and loot your shops, beat you up. Oh, really? Yes. We will give you protection, don't worry. We will give you protection. You only have to pay us hafta. Sometimes I've heard even policemen come and do that. Give me a hafta, I'll protect you from the local. So that protection becomes necessary because you have nanatvam. I and everything else. Therefore, protection becomes necessary. But if you understand that there is nothing else, that the Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam you have understood, then why do you need protection? From what do you need protection? No, Swamiji, my body still needs protection because somebody might come and beat me up. True, but you can come and beat you up. But that fear caused by this, seeing this as reality, the problem is not that it is not there. It is there in the Vyavaharika Satyam, in the Vyavaharika Jagat. But when you see that as Paramarthika, then it becomes the source of all kinds of fear. When you take sannyasa, you go through something called Abhaya Pratishtha. You take a vow not to be the cause of fear for any other being, nor to be afraid of anything because of your understanding of the Satyam. Fear is there. Even the fear is mithya. Everything is mithya. As long as I identify with the Sharira, there is only mithya. So he says, Ishano Bhuta Bhavyasya, when you recognize the same Angushtamatra Purusha, the Antaratma, as the same as Parameshwara, the result is Na tato vijugupsate. There is no need for protection of any kind. This identical Jivatma, Paramatma, which is only one same thing, is what you're looking for, He Nachiketa. Indeed, He Nachiketa, etad vai tat. This is indeed what you were looking for. So he explains that in different ways. He'll continue to do that. He will keep on taking other mantras where he will talk about what that Atma is, the nature of that Atma, which Nachiketa asked about. So, Angushtamatra Purushaha Bhuta Bhavyasya Ishanaha Madhye Atmani Tishtati. That Angushtamatra Purushaha Bhutabhavyasya Ishanah Madhye Atmani Tishtati. It's the same thing. Bhutabhavyasya Isha is the same as Angushtamatra Purushaha, which Madhye Atmani Madhye Tishtati. Tam Nyatva, having understood that, Tam Nyatva Tataha na Vijugupsate. Having understood that, therefore, there is no cause for, no need for protection. We've seen this word Vijugupsate earlier also. I think 4 or 5 verses earlier we saw this. There also he said, Na Vijugupsate. Where was that? Imam Madvadam Veda Atmanam Jivamantikat Ishanam Bhutabhavyasya Na Tato Vijugupsate. Verse number 5. Mantra number 5. It's the same. In fact, the second line is identical. Ishanam Bhutabhavya. There is a Ishano Bhutabhavyasya Na Tato Vijugupsate. The same sentence. Where you see that this Jagat Karanam, Kalasya Karanamapi is the same thing as the I, then there is no need for any protection. Well, let's read what Bhashyakara has to say and then we'll go on to the next. Angushtamatra
Angushtamatra
Angushta Parimana
Angushta Parimana
Angushta Parimanam
Angushta Parimanam
Hridaya Pundarikam
Hridaya Pundarikam
Tad Chidravat
Tad Chidravat
Chidravati it should be. Tad Chidravati Antaha Tad
Tad Chidravati Antaha
Karanopadi
Karanopadi
Angushtamatra Angushtamatra Vamsha Parva Madhyavartyambar Ambaravat
Angushtamatra Vamsha Parva Madhyavartyambara
Purushaha
Purushaha
Purnamana Sarvamiti
Purnamanena Sarvamiti
Madhye Atmani
Madhya Atmani
Sharire Tishtati
Sharire Tishtati
Yaha Tam Atmanam Ishanam
Yahatam Atmanam Ishanam
Bhuta Bhavyasya Viditva
Bhutabhavyasya Viditva
Na Tataha Ityadi Purvavat.
Natataha Ityadi Purvavat.
Simply finished by saying, go back and look at what we discussed in mantra number 5. Na tataha ityadi purvavate, like in the past. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.